All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So in this one, I wanted to ask the question, could the New York Jets actually draft a quarterback in the first round at pick number 10? There's some Jets fans that are completely against it. There's some Jets fans that are definitely interested, and then there's some Jets fans that are kind of in the middle. And in this one, I wanted to look at everything objectively, break down all the pros, right? The reasons why it could happen, why it would make sense, the reasons why it would not make sense, kind of play devil's advocate as we go. And of course, I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you prefer quarterback at 10? Are you completely against it? Do you think the Jets would be, idiots to do it? Or do you kind of just fall somewhere in the middle, right? Where if it happens, it happens. The Jets know what they're doing. So let's talk about why it makes sense first. I think the first thing that just jumps right into your mind when you're thinking about the Jets drafting a quarterback in this year's class, Aaron Rodgers will be his mentor, a future first ballot Hall of Famer, right? That's a once in a lifetime. That's rarer than once in a lifetime, right? It's one thing to make it to the NFL. It's one thing to be a first round pick. It's one thing to have, an offensive staff working with you. But on top of that, literally having a top five, in my opinion, a top 5 quarterback of all time teach you the game, help you along the way, make sure you're feeling good, making sure you're picking up cues in practice and everything is moving in the right direction. I mean, talk about an absolute luxury for that young quarterback. Not only just Aaron Rodgers, but you also have Tyrod Taylor in the mix. And look, Tyrod Taylor's not going to the Hall of Fame, but Tyrod Taylor has been a part of tons of teams, tons of offenses. He's had some success. He's had some failures. He's been a part of some really good teams. He's been a part of some bad teams. He's won a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens early on in his career. That's a guy that you could really learn a lot from as well. Just put yourself in the shoes of a young quarterback for a second. It's your first day on the job. You're walking in, you got Aaron Rodgers sitting there, Tyrod Taylor sitting there, 2 seasoned veterans that are going to be kind of nurturing you along the way. I mean, talk about just an awesome situation. To me, it's probably one of the more ideal situations for a young quarterback when you take a look at the landscape of football, right? Because the rest of the great quarterbacks, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, Pat Mahomes, all these guys are Herbert. All these guys are super young, right? Rodgers isn't going to be playing for the next decade. So to kind of have that experience at the end of Rodgers and really Tyrod's career as well, I think is awesome. You got to be loving life if you're a quarterback and you're picked to the Jets. So the second point kind of goes hand in hand with the first place, but because Rodgers is there, because Tyrod is there, it's a true redshirt year. There's not going to be any pressure on that rookie quarterback to come in and be the savior, save the franchise, right? Geno Smith was forced out early. Sam Darnold was forced out early. Zach Wilson was forced out early. With this situation, no, it's not going to happen, right? Aaron Rodgers is out there, and look, injuries happen, but in the event that Rodgers were to get hurt again, you have another bridge guy in Tyrod Taylor. Now, you could make the argument, well, Tyrod Taylor gets hurt a lot too. That's totally fair. But, going into the year, we got to be, we have to look across the NFL. If you are a third-string quarterback, the chances of you playing are, not the highest. So you would have 2 buffers in front of that rookie quarterback to where he could really just focus on growing, mentally, growing in practice, growing physically, and just trying to learn and soak up the game, watching elite quarterback play in A-Rod. I think that's really, really important. I think quarterbacks that have a year on the bench or at least half a year on the bench, it's so beneficial, right? It's not like other sports where you need practice reps or live bullets, live game reps early on to get better. In some cases, yes, but not in every case, right? If you're an NFL quarterback, there's so much of a mental aspect of the game where learning, not playing, watching somebody else do it. I mean, you can grow so much in just doing that. So I think that would be a beautiful situation for, a young quarterback. I think the third point here is also pretty obvious, but the New York Jets went out and filled a bunch of needs in free agency, right? They filled right tackle. They filled wide receiver too. They filled left tackle. They added some interior defensive linemen. The Jets aren't locked into a given position where it's like, all right, well, we spent a bunch of money at wide receiver. We spent a bunch of money at, left tackle, but right tackle is a complete void, right? We have nobody there that we can rely on, so we're kind of forced into going with a right tackle here. It's not the case, right? We gave Rodgers protection. We gave Rodgers another weapon on the outside, hopefully alleviating some of the pressure off of Garrett Wilson from opposing defensive coordinators and defensive head coaches. You're upgrading at left guard as well with John Simpson. I would assume it would be an upgrade based off Laken Tomlinson's play as of these past, 2 seasons, unfortunately. So you would also hope that the running game also improves. And with Rodgers out there, teams have to beware of the deep threat. You can't just play within the 10, 15-yard rectangle offense that we were doing last year with Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle and whatnot. It's just simply not the case. Defenses have to respect the deep parts of the field. So with that opens up everything else, really everything else. Crossing routes, anything underneath, check down, screens, the running game, I'm sure will benefit, which would then in turn benefit the play action game. So the bottom line is, if the Jets were to go with a quarterback at spot number 10, it's not like we would be, screaming at the television saying, what are we doing? We have a practice squad player slated in to be the starting left tackle, and there's no more available in free agency. What the heck is going on here? We're not in that position. Again, John Simpson, Morgan Moses, Mike Williams, Tyron Smith. We added a lot of, and look, they're not necessarily long-term fixes. In the case of a lot of these guys, it's 1 year. Moses, 1 year. Tyron Smith, 1 year. Mike Williams, 1 year. It's not to say that they can't re-up, but just looking at the contracts here, it's just 1 year deals. But again, when you're just looking at the starting lineup here, we don't have that immediate need where it's all hands on deck. Everybody in the NFL, every fan across the world knows exactly who we're going to be targeting. And then last but not least, another positive here of drafting a quarterback, yes, he's not going to be playing this season, but he would maybe take over in 2025, potentially 2026, depending on how long Rodgers wants to play for. But by the time that quarterback would step into the starting lineup, I'm envisioning the Jets as a stacked team. Another free agency class loaded into the squad, another draft class loaded into the squad. We don't know exactly what's going to be happening with our third round pick, with our multiple fourths. I envision by the time, let's just say it's, Bo Nix or Michael Penix, whoever it is, by the time that quarterback steps in, he's going to be, having a roster that is really well-rounded, again, by that time where he's expected to take over the reins as the starting quarterback. And if that quarterback is progressing and everything looks great, I mean, the Jets could literally have their franchise QB, their franchise wide receiver, and their franchise running back to all grow together for the foreseeable future. So I do think there is a lot of positives here. And yes, of course, it is stacked on top of the fact that I really like some of these quarterback prospects, right? I don't believe Drake May will fall all the way to spot number 10, but I would be intrigued. I understand that Bo Nix isn't for everybody, but man, I really feel like there's some likable traits there. There's some traits that you can build around 100%. I think the accuracy is rare. I think the decision-making is great. You can look at the mobility. You can look at success under center, which I think is really important. Success with 2 different teams, 2 different coaching staffs. In the SEC, of course, at Auburn, and then, Pac-12 with Oregon. The amount of games that he's played in, I think there's something to be said for that. He's going to be coming in at an older age, I believe at 22 years old, so he would be a little bit more mature. I think, and also too, the players love Bo Nix. They rally around Bo Nix. So I think I think he maybe could be a little bit ahead of the curve as far as like the rookie developmental, growth is concerned. But the accuracy, man, that's something that's off the charts when it comes to Bo Nix. And then, of course, you got Michael Penix, a fantastic deep ball thrower, somebody who can, just pick teams apart from the pocket, somebody who can extend plays when you need him to, really strong arm. Obviously, just you look at the numbers, the resume is fantastic, the TD to INT ratio, crazy. And that also is, a huge positive in the Bo Nix camp as well. Touchdowns to picks is crazy with both of these quarterbacks. And then another guy who I'm really intrigued about is Spencer Rattler, just a natural thrower, fantastic throwing mechanics. Somebody who can, again, he brings mobility, he brings arm strength, he brings playmaking ability. I remember watching him in the early days of Oklahoma, and he would just make these throws, and it's just like, oh my Lord, like there was a reason why he was such a highly touted high school quarterback. Same, of course, with Caleb Williams, but of course, and then you got Michael Pratt and a couple other guys that are maybe projected to go like round 4 through 7. But in any case, there is a lot of positives for the Jets drafting a quarterback. Let's talk about the negatives now. So I think the first thing that's super obvious here, he's not going to help the team in 2024, right? That he's not going to be on the field. Yes, of course, he could be a good teammate. Yes, he could be a good leader, be a good locker room guy, be uplifting in practice, morale, all that kind of stuff. But is he actually contributing to the team winning games? No. Is he helping Rodgers in camp dissect defenses? No. It's one of these long-term types of picks. You're not making this to have a short-term impact. And a lot of Jets fans want really high up on their list of priorities. I want a guy who can contribute right now. The New York Jets made a decision to take on the Aaron Rodgers contract, to bring in Aaron Rodgers at 39, 40 years old, to trade away draft picks. We're signing a bunch of veterans on one-year deals. Yeah, the pressure's on. If Saleh gets 6 wins next year, he's fired. If Douglas and the Jets get 5 wins, they're canned, right? The Jets will clean house. So there's pressure, there's immediate pressure on this team to turn things around, right? Flip the script and make the playoffs. Finally, can we get back to the playoffs? It's been an eternity, it feels like. And drafting a quarterback will not help the Jets get back to the playoffs or win more games in the short term. It's just fact of the matter, unless Rodgers gets hurt, Tyrod gets hurt, and then that quarterback looks really, really good, which is, that shouldn't be your plan of attack when drafting a player in the first round. And then secondly, although the Jets filled a bunch of needs in the draft, the roster is very top heavy. Right, again, Tyron Smith 1-year deal, Morgan Moses 1-year deal, Mike Williams 1-year deal. In the event that Tyron Smith were to go down, we're back to square one. We desperately need a left tackle. If AVT were to get hurt and have another season-ending injury, we really need help at right guard. Same can be said for Mike Williams on the outside. We're back to the whole Allen Lazard, Jason Brownlee argument. Oh man, we really need to go after another player in free agency here. Not to mention that these guys actually have a track record, unfortunately, of getting hurt. So yes, names on paper, when we look at it from like a Madden perspective, right, where we can just flip injuries off, the Jets are fine. We're freaking stacked for the starting lineup. But what happened in 2023? Players got hurt. We didn't have depth. Players got hurt at premium positions, and we just had no answers. What happened in 2022? What happened in 2021? The Jets have a constant injury problem. Let's mitigate that. Let's get some insurance policies on the roster. Drafting a quarterback to be the third stringer, especially in the first round, when you are so thin at so many different positions, might not be the best idea for a team that is win now, has a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure on their shoulders. So again, it's a long-term play here. Very, very top-heavy roster. And then last but not least, the Jets arguably have one of the worst offensive coaching staffs in the National Football League, right? I think, if you listen to players, like literally Jets players, kind of voice their frustration throughout the course of the season, it was obvious they were pointing the finger directly at the coaching staff. I mean, we can talk about like the McCole Hardman thing. Oh, the Jets offense just did whatever they want. When Rodgers went down, they had no plan. I want my coaching staff in the National Football League to elevate my players. I don't want them to be an anchor dragging them down, making them worse, right? And it's not just Hackett and offensive coordinator, right, who's the primary play caller and whatnot, but it's Todd Downing, who was fired in Tennessee. It was Keith Carter, who was fired in Tennessee. Keith Carter has had multiple players bash him, right? Taylor Lewan, former Titans. I believe a current Jet actually had made a comment about him, once the season kind of was wrapping up. I mean, You look at the Jets offensive coaching staff, they don't have a track record for developing quarterbacks. You look at the on-field product in 2023, it was a complete disaster. It was a joke. You could tell these guys had no answers whatsoever. We can reference like the Athletic report where supposedly, an anonymous Jets coach said that Hackett was one of the coaches that he's been around that watches the least amount of practice film. And he was shocked by that. So the offensive staff definitely does not give me confidence. If you're a young quarterback entering the league, yes, the Jets have a lot of attractive things about them, but is the actual product of coaching that you're receiving from these guys even that good? I would argue probably not, right? Probably not. Look, I understand it, right? The offense was built around Aaron Rodgers and whatnot. I get that completely. But it wasn't just, Hackett had a bad year in 2023. We could point to Denver, where the same exact issues were apparent, right? Where he didn't have success with Russell Wilson, and he didn't have success with Brett Rippon. He didn't have success with any other quarterback outside of Aaron Rodgers. I guess you can maybe argue Blake Bortles with the Jaguars, but we all know that team was run-based with Leonard Fournette, and defensive based with, the stacked roster that they had at the time. So, Hackett is just, again, if you're a young quarterback, you're probably not too excited to, look at that offensive staff and say, oh yeah, I'm really going to maximize my talents. I'm really going to maximize my growth in this, situation / landscape here. So when I think it comes to Joe Douglas, the one thing that we do know is that he does trust his big board here, and the Jets have been doing their due diligence, meeting, interviewing, and scouting these top quarterbacks, right? Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. The Jets have had in-person meetings with all three quarterbacks, Bo Nix as well. In fact, the Jets actually sent 5 coaches to the Oregon Pro Day, and part of that was to specifically scout Bo Nix. So I think if the Jets had zero interest in doing, in drafting a quarterback, we would still be poking around, kind of just trying to figure out the layout of the big board. But I don't know if they would be maybe as serious as, with meeting with these guys as they currently are. But in any case, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.